Hey, everybody, it's Simone here with Bella again, and the 64 Doors. Bella with the Living Matrix, 64 Doors, and Living Your Design. And today we are so excited because we're going to talk to the archetype of Gene Key 3 through the eyes of a child. So, Gene Keys 3, the city is innocence. The gift is innovation and the shadow is chaos. And we are so excited to be with you guys today and have this amazing conversation with the archetype of Gene Key 3. Bella, anything before we begin?
No, I'm just excited to start and let you see what comes in.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I'd like to communicate with the archetype of Gene Key 3. The soul of the archetype of Gene Key 3. Will you communicate with us? Oh, so like immediately so many images, and it's like I'm watching a being on a skateboard going down a street super fast. Imagine we're in a high-speed film and there's so much passing by us. It feels like simultaneously we are in the earth plane and the universe. So as we skateboard or jettison down this pathway, the pathway looks like a paved pathway, and we pass by grass, trees, planets, stars, other beings, and light being. So it's all right there, right at our fingertips, that we're just zooming past. I asked the soul of the archetype of 3 what wisdom it wanted to share, and it's like, hold on, I want to play. I'm on my journey. Don't slow me down. What are you doing? It's saying, like, don't talk, just be. Be with the speed of the experience. Be with the totality of the experience. And what are you noticing? And the thing that I'm noticing the most is the life force of all the things we pass by. So if it's a planet, it's like I feel the totality of Jupiter. I feel the totality of Saturn. I feel the essence of the grass, that it's all fully alive, like 100% present and there. And the child that it's like a childlike being on the skateboard that I'm following. It feels like the perfect combination of masculine and feminine. So I think I'm going to refer to them as they. So they're just laughing. There's so much delight in the totality of the whole experience. And while it runs by my screens very fast, to them, it's like the perfect speed. They have the full experience. It's the essence of divine timing, if you will. And they're saying they just wanted us to have this experience of the totality of everything they engage. Mm-hmm. And now they're talking about, like, when you draw a picture of, let's say, a landscape, you draw a tree and grass and flowers, and we put in planets. Mm-hmm. You know, our landscape is not limited to this earth plane. Our landscape is the cosmos. It's everything from this point on earth through the cosmos. Mm. And the limitlessness is incredible. And now they're showing me, it's almost like they're talking about life cycles. So everything that I had seen or experienced, felt, was really living energy, and experiencing the totality of the living energy. But then they show me, there's a flower that's dying, and there's the totality of that experience too. There's no shying away from, um, they say, what you might say as light or dark, whole or empty.
Mm-hmm.
Empty is whole too. That there's a completeness, if you will, in every energetic expression, even though humans weigh and measure and quantify through the eyes of them, through the eyes of the child of the archetype of the soul. Everything is in its totality, in whatever state it is. It's in its completeness, it's in its wholeness, its field is perfect just as it is. And that's why they can see connections where others are unable to process, because when everything is wholeness, completeness, unified in its field, they're able to see connections and interplay and how things relate. That's how they can put Saturn next to a tree in their landscape.
Mm.
And it makes sense, because there's this connectedness through the embodiness of wholeness, of completeness, of the unified field. And they say, if they could share one thing with us, that's what it would be: to see everything as completely unified and whole in its totality of its energy. And when we do that, we can see connections to everything. That is really truly the unified field of oneness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they say it's through judgment as incomplete that the connectedness breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying everything you see it as full, whole, complete, and celebrate its itsness. Whether it's a flower blooming or a flower decaying, it's in the completeness of its itness. And they say, if you apply this to other beings, there's no less than. Other beings are in the completeness. If you see them in the completeness of self, in the wholeness of self, it, it doesn't matter how a person perceives itself or herself. It's how the observer. They're saying to me, when you look at a tree, you don't go, well, that tree's half dead. You just go tree, and you have you have the expression of the fullness of a tree. He says, with humans, it's easier for you all to do it with things that are not human, but or to have that wholeness of vision, the awareness of complete energy. And then they just took everything and started spinning it really, really fast. And so it looks like a almost like those lollipops you get at the fair, those big lollipops, they're like a candy twist swirl. So that's what the light looks like. They've swirled everything together. And it almost reminds me of a chakra, of how I see chakras, where there's this swirling of color of everything together. And now they're just laughing. Like, I can't see them as a physical essence, but I feel and see the translucence of them, and they're just laughing and delightedness, and how they play with unity consciousness. And now it's like they're throwing the whole world. It's like they took that swirling color ball, and it's like they're throwing it up in the air, that they're just playing with the energy of wholeness, oneness. And then they're eating it. It's like they are taking it all in through the metaphor of, consuming it, just taking it all into themselves. And then I was seeing them as translucent light beings. And so they eat this ball of energy. And then it's like they spring flowers from everywhere in their body. They're just so alive. It just, when I was watching that image, it just reminds me of, I heard the word alchemy, so this whole alchemical process of engaging with the wholeness of everything, that there really is no limit to what's possible. And I had a flash. It reminded me of like the Cat in the Hat books, those children's books where there's no, it's just not, everything is possible in those books. And they stopped and they looked at me and they said, everything is possible. And they said, that's what we would like to leave you with now. Everything is possible.
Yeah.
They are good. If you have some questions you'd like to ask them, we can see what they say.
I feel this is a lot of the process that's been going on for all of us with Ashley as well, and Tim, when we've spoken about the third gene key. And I've seen these colorful explosions, and I've been, we're speaking with Ashley to create graphics, but what is that? Those explosions of color. But that's really how I see it, and that's how new alchemical truths almost. That's the mutations, things that weren't there before. That's what I see in the third gene key, and it is because it believes everything is possible, and it's not afraid of coming in with innovation to the world. I feel I have a little bit of a question, because I was thinking about children today when we were working with it, and it seems like so many of the children so early are kind of we take away that from them, that everything is possible. There are so many structures, there are so much input. So I'm wondering if there is any words, any advice, anything for for the children and for us who are here to bring up the children.
Well, the first thing they say is don't limit love. They say that love is limitless. And many parents and people experience love as boundary. And they're showing me that they're showing how it all gets confusing, because parents want order. They need order for their own experience. And they say when we use the word boundary, we can see how it is confusing, because for human life, you feel like boundaries, rules keep chaos from ensuing. And we understand that humans don't perceive they can live in chaos, that they need order. And so what happens is, in the ordering and structuring of life, a confusion occurs that limits love. where love shifts from unconditional to conditional. Because many parents, people, don't understand how to set boundaries in the context of love, that the boundary is disconnected from unconditional love. There is a way to set guidelines for life without connecting it to unconditional love or conditional love. And they're saying we realize it's challenging because you're human, and mothers and fathers get tired. They don't have access to the boundless energy that children have because they're immersed in adult worlds. And yet, if they can somehow find the childlike parts of themselves and love their children from the childlike parts of themselves, and in a sense, parent as a child, put their childlike eyes back on, and love their children from the unconditional love of their childlike selves, it will be easier. They say, think about the energetic flows. Imagine a parent coming from the adult world of work or whatever their day is, stress of driving on a freeway or a busy, physically taxing job. And they come home and they experience their children in this childlike boundlessness of energy. And it's hard sometimes to see through the eyes of a child in that moment. But if they can just go into themselves and remember that childlike self and activate it, say, I asked to communicate with the childlike part of myself. I asked the childlike part of myself to guide my communication with my children. They will unleash the boundlessness within them and communicate from a place of unconditional love, where setting guidelines and parameters for living are not tied to the child feeling loved or not loved. It's really the feeling of being loved or not loved tied to action that we're really getting at. It's interesting. They go, sometimes all a child wants is to be handed a balloon and to be allowed to fly with that balloon. The permission to explore creativity. Sometimes children want to have an experience and relationship with the childlike part of their parents, not the adult part of their parents. And they're saying, if we could say anything to parents, create a space and a time to be your childlike self with your children, where you get on the floor with them and just have no mental boundaries to your creativity, no matter how silly it seems to you as the adult. Just getting on the ground and rolling around and laughing and giggling from that childlike part of yourself with your children. What you will see is that your children, your child will experience that childlike part of yourself, and that's what they hunger for. And so for those parents who come home and their children seem to be wild and crazy and cranked up and they are so excited, what they're really asking for is an experience of the childlike part of yourself. So if you can somehow put that adult part of yourself to the side, get on the ground and have 5 or 10 minutes of complete childlike self, and do it intentionally. Ask to communicate with that, connect with that part, that childlike part of yourself, and awaken that for those 5 or 10, 15 minutes with your child, and give the totality of yourself to your child. You will see what happens, in that beautiful wholeness of the experience. It will satisfy your children so much, and they will understand the feeling of being unconditionally loved and experienced. And they will experience you in that unconditional space. God, it's so beautiful to watch, on my screens. I hope I captured that for everyone listening.
Yeah. I mean, I'm taking back to the Venus sequence and to the first 7 years or the first 14 years, and seeing that how spirituality and the physical vehicle can be nurtured, and then how the emotional intelligence is nurtured, so that when there is an experience of unconditional love there, I feel like so many of the things that makes us hide away from the SQ and the EQ later on and hide out in the IQ in the mind would be there's so many things that don't need to happen on the way there.
It's like when a parent can play with the child, whether they're drawing, like if you're drawing, make your drawing silly. They don't have to be a house with a tree, have it be magical and magical realness. Allow that. Ashley is saying, bring out the kid in you if you let them. Yes. So be in that state of receiving from them. And, whether you're drawing or you're playing or you're creating or you're telling stories or you're rolling around giggling, for whatever time you can, be in that totality of your childlike self with them. Allow yourself to go to that place. The experience they will have is unconditional love, because you're going to the totality of you, accessing and relating with the totality of them. And that's where they will feel that unconditional love. It reminds me of when the archetype was showing us the experience of totality of everything they were experiencing. That's a way to bond with your child in the totality of you. And what they're showing me is that when you can go to that place with them, in that childlike place, it's as if they can then see the totality of you as an adult. Mm-hmm. It's like an entry point.
Yeah, I hear the 28th gene key, because that is totality and risk taking, you could say. So it's almost like, for a grown up, it's a risk. Like you are gonna have to let go of some structures, some order, some things that you think have to be there, and it is you have to kind of dive in there, because many of us, like we were saying, if we are hanging out in our IQ, in our mind, we don't have even access to the own parts of ourselves that are playful. So I guess that it is a risk to become the eternal child and to stay there as a grown up.
And they're also showing me that a byproduct of this is when the adult allows access to that childlike part of themselves and experiences the totality, the wholeness of their creativity and imagination with the child, they'll have more access to that when they are in other parts of their world. And the great thing about that is that's going to enhance and make their lived experience when they're away from their children more whole, more creative, more innovative, more whole.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like a gift. Here's the interesting thing. I just saw the geometry of it. It seems like a gift to the child to, have that time of pure childlike creativity and playfulness. And it ends up being a gift to the self, so that experience of unconditional love with the child, it then becomes unconditional love for the self. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and I feel like I want to bring in Gene Key 6 because Richard speak about 46 for the first 7-year period, which is seriousness in the low frequency and it's ecstasy in the light. So that's the key that is programming the XQ the first 7 years. So that is also a good reminder. It's like it's kind of the kids are co-creating the truth of what you're saying.
They say this is good. I asked them, is there anything else? And they said this is good. They're happy. Do you have any other questions?
No, I just feel like it's funny that it's like I feel like they're kids, All the other times it's either he or she, and this time it's them, So I feel like a bunch of little beings that are all. Yeah. No, I don't have any more questions. I feel it was perfect and beautiful. Knowing what the Gene Key is, but this was a very live way to bring it into reality.
Mm-hmm. And they're just off on their scooter again, their skateboard, and they're just flying. They're already gone. So I'm just going to say thank you to them. They're waving. And they said that they'll talk to us anytime. So if we're talking to some other Gene Key and if we feel like through the eyes of the child, Gene Key 3 would help. They say, call us in. We'll communicate with you. They're just so willing. Yeah. So happy. They say, of course, we want to bring joy and love to the world. That was great.
Yeah, so much fun.
Yeah.
And I love to do it live because we got some comments. So I also, for anybody who's watching, if you like to have this live on Thursdays, I feel like, Simone, it's a good idea to come back and just share like this about it.
Well, I'd love to. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody who are watching, and we'll come back. Bye.
Bye.